it's safe to say we're all walking kind of on air this morning. Welcome to the Morning Medical Update on this final Red Friday. So exciting. It's February 10th. I'm Alexis Del Cid, in for Jessica Lovell. We are decked out in red here. We're cheering on the Chiefs ahead of Super Bowl 57 as the official healthcare partner of the Chiefs. We can tell you they are healthy and ready to compete. We will all be watching and cheering them on Sunday. In the meantime, we have an incredible story for you. Just a stacked program this morning with some equally amazing guests. Kyle Mellard is a Wichita police officer. 2 years ago, he survived being shot in the line of duty. His wife, Shelby, has been with him every step of the way. We have Dr. Ravi Garg. He's the surgeon. Dr. Garg, you rebuilt Kyle's face. Incredible. Thank you for joining us. I got to ask, Kyle, what are your Super Bowl plans? And I see you've got your whole army of your family there. What are you guys going to do on Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, we're going to go to my dad's bar and watch the game.
Nice. Nice. And you've got the whole family here to kind of kick off the weekend. Dr. Garg, Chiefs, Eagles?
Oh, Chiefs, of course.
Good answer. that was an easy one. And you're really kind of getting into the Chiefs spirit because you didn't grow up in Kansas City.
Nope, I'm from California, but I mean, it's hard to not love the Chiefs when you're here.
Right. So it's going to be just a great show, great weekend. And if you're watching live, drop us a comment with your Super Bowl predictions and wishes. Now I want to go back to Kyle, who we know is incredibly grateful to be able to celebrate the Super Bowl Sunday with his family because he's really celebrating life every day now. Nearly 2 years ago, his life came very close to ending. A warning, this story does include the sound of gunfire.
Yeah, we're basically mom's little sous chefs.
If you ask Kyle Mellard what life is like now, the Wichita police officer will tell you normal.
Just trying to knock the rust off and get back into the swing of things. Nothing's really changed.
Nothing and everything, as he has survived something profound.
I love my girls.
With 2 beautiful daughters, another baby girl due any day now, and a wife who adores him.
I was a police officer too. That's how we met.
It's a beautiful life that almost ended on June 19th, 2021, the night before Father's Day.
Officer in trouble, 520 West, Carl, operate on south.
Kyle was wrapping up his shift when a frantic call came in around 11 o'clock.
Officers came up over the radio screaming that they were being shot at and asking for help.
He jumped in a squad car.
There's still shots being fired.
His sister, also a Wichita police officer, responded to the scene.
2 shots fired.
She would be one of the last people he saw before coming face to face with the gunman.
When I walked around the corner of the house, he was just waiting for the first officer to step around from the corner.
Put the gun down.
And started shooting at me.
Put the gun down.
I got an officer down, officer down.
The bullets hit Kyle in both legs and then his face.
He's down, he's down, he's down. He's being taken into custody.
The bullet to his face went through his mouth, out the back of his head.
The bullet blew up when it went through my teeth, and the fragments severed one of my vertebral arteries.
His C2 and C4 vertebrae were hit. Several teeth and part of his tongue and jaw gone. It would take an incredible team to put Kyle's face back together, and the doctors in Wichita knew who should lead it. The University of Kansas Health System plastic surgeon, Dr. Ravi Garg. Dr. Garg took one look at Kyle and went to work on his left leg. Why?
That's what Dr. Garg used for the jaw reconstruction, is my left fibula. Apparently it's not a weight-bearing bone, so if I don't need a fibula, I'd rather have a jawbone.
What followed was a 9-hour surgery, during which, piece by piece, Dr. Garg would use the unbroken parts of Kyle's body to put him back together. Take a look at these pictures. These are before and after pictures of Kyle before he came to see Dr. Garg for facial reconstruction surgery and after. And we are so thrilled to have Kyle, his wife Shelby, joining us right now. And we understand you're also celebrating another huge life-changing update. You have an addition now. You are no longer pregnant with your 3rd child. You're holding her.
Yep.
Here she is.
Is this our Lion King moment? Are you Simba?
Yes.
She's adorable. What's her name?
Her name is Theo.
Theo, and you have to introduce us to your other 2 daughters because we see them and we need to give them, they've been so good beside you during this. Who's this?
This is Clark.
Hi.
Hi there.
And this is
Oh, look at those
Spencer.
faces. Well, you guys, girls, thank you for joining us with your mom and dad and your baby sister. This is such a great family moment and so great to see you. We're really happy to have Kyle's surgeon here, Dr. Ravi Garg, in the Dolph C. Simons Jr. Family Broadcast Studio. Dr. Garg, was Kyle's surgery rare?
You know, we actually performed this sort of surgery quite commonly.
Really?
Transplanting vascularized or living bone from one part of the body to the face to rebuild the jaw or other parts of the facial skeleton.
Is it always the leg bone?
It's not always the leg bone. Sometimes we use bone from the arm, the back, or the hip. But the leg bone is a really great donor site. We have a lot of control in terms of how we shape it to get creative with our reconstruction and really deliver a very precise result to the patient.
It's so interesting to hear you say it's common, because everyone outside of medicine I've talked to about this story is stunned that you were able to use Kyle's leg, his leg bone, to rebuild his face. That is sounds so incredibly complicated, but look at the work you have done. Kyle, you look fantastic. Kyle, I want to ask you, after the shooting happened in 2021, you had a few different stays in the hospital. How long before you finally came here to the health system to connect with Dr. Garg?
It was about 5 months after the initial shooting when I was pointed in the direction of cave.
So you had your injuries and you were living with all those preconditions that you had after your injuries. We have some pictures of you with that big halo brace on your head. Can you describe what that was like and how long you had to wear it?
Yeah, that wasn't very fun, and I had to wear it for 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Were you in the hospital that whole time with the halo on?
No, I was only in the hospital for 4 weeks before I got to come home. So I had to wear it 2 weeks outside of the hospital.
So how does that work? That seems like that would be so cumbersome and strange. And how do you sleep with that on? Among
In a
other
recliner.
things.
Yeah, sitting up in a recliner is how I slept.
What did your little girls think of that? Did they try to pull it?
They thought it was a Prince crown. Yeah.
Earlier this week, Kyle, you talked with a Wichita TV station, K-Witch, about returning to work as an officer, which is another remarkable step you've made. When did you go back into the field working as a police officer?
Yeah, I started the reintegration process to patrol the second week of December, and now I'm back to my my original assignment I was before, or when I got shot.
Wow. How do you emotionally do that? Or are you the kind of guy where you just, okay, I'm moving on, I'm going back to my life, and I'm going to do this?
It's a lot of support, from these three right here, all four now, and then the rest of my family. I couldn't do it without them.
Well, we have some questions for Shelby. Speaking of that support, Shelby, we're going to get to you in a minute. Dr. Garg, I want to bring you back in. Initially, it was a team of surgeons in Wichita who tried the first steps to try to reconstruct Kyle's jaw, but there were some problems after that first attempt. Can you talk us through how complicated of a process that was and how Kyle came to be with you?
Sure. So, Kyle really faced some severe injuries, including the fact that his jaw was shattered. The halo that he was wearing was for his spinal injuries. And so the doctors in Wichita did a good job, I think, for what they had to work with. They basically had to repair the torn up tissues in his floor of mouth, along his tongue, and put back together the fragmented pieces of his jawbone. And so they did a good job with that, but with such a bad injury, the problem was that he didn't heal properly in his mouth and developed what's called a fistula, or a salivary leakage between the floor of mouth and the neck. And the bone got infected and it didn't heal properly by the time I saw him. So we were then faced with a bigger problem that we had to solve.
Wow. And what was it like, Kyle, living with the hole in the bottom of your mouth and the fistula, and how uncomfortable was that before you saw Dr. Garg?
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable and definitely a learning curve, just trying to live like that. So I was very grateful when I was introduced to Dr. Garg, and he said that there was hope for more reality.
Dr. Garg, we have a rendering of what Kyle's skull looked like before he came to you. So I'd love it if you talked us through what we're seeing there in that red area.
Yeah, this is a 3D reconstruction of a CT scan of Kyle's before we did surgery. It shows the initial reconstruction plate that was used to stabilize his broken bone. And that area in red demonstrates the bone that is not healed. It is fragmented, and it actually had some pus in it. So it was not healthy bone and needed to be removed.
Dr. Garg, so many people are fascinated, again, that you were able to use his leg bone, particularly the fibula. What is it about the fibula? Because, Kyle, if I'm not mistaken, your other fibula had been hit by the bullets, right?
Yeah, my right fibula was shattered.
So you had one good fibula, and you were able to take it. So does he have no fibula now? Not in either leg?
That's right. So we take the majority of the fibula bone, in this case from his left leg. We leave part of the bone near the knee and the ankle for joint stability. But the rest of the bone is actually a great donor material for us. The majority of weight bearing, as Kyle mentioned, occurs through the tibia. So we can take the fibula with minimal morbidity. And it's a very nice tissue for us to use because it has blood vessels that run along the length of it, so we can bring it up to the face with its blood supply. So it's a living bone transplant, and then make cuts in the bone to shape it into a new mandibular arch to rebuild the face.
Was this something that you knew you wanted to do in medicine when you wanted to become a doctor, or was this something that you decided along the way you thought was cool and interesting?
It was definitely one of the things that early on inspired me to do what I do today. Just the creativity, the planning, and the precision of the work that's involved really kind of inspired me.
It's almost like an artwork.
It is.
Artwork and architecture and medicine, all combined. We have another rendering showing us the leg and the jaw, so I'd love it if you walked us through what we're seeing here.
Sure. So this is a representation. On the left, you see Kyle's skull. So this is the planned removal of that red, infected, non-healed area of bone. And what we've done is on the right, you see the fibula bone. We've planned it out to take 3 segments of that bone with its blood supply and to put those segments together to create the new arch form of the jaw. And so the right shows how we're going to plan those bone cuts. We've planned this before we even go to the operating room. And the skull on the left is the bone segments in place. The yellow cylinders show where we have planned immediate placement of dental implants in the bone. One of the great things about the fibula is that the bone stock is robust enough to accommodate dental implants. And so we put those implants in immediately, planning this with a prosthodontist so that we could then get Kyle dentally restored as well.
You say you do this kind of surgery often. What's often to you? Like a weekly, monthly?
We do this, in my practice, I do this 3 to 4 times a month.
Wow.
So every week.
So 3 to 4 times a month you're doing the similar procedure you did on Kyle to other people in the patients within the health system. That's fascinating. When we talk about bones as well, I didn't realize initially that your bones also have blood vessels. I know it seems like a no-brainer to you, but for a lot of us, there's that whole vascular component. So can you talk about the vascular work?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is living bone. So kind of like all the tissues in your body, bone also has a blood supply. It has an artery that brings oxygen and nutrients to the bone and veins that drain all the waste products from the bone. And so if we can bring living bone to a recipient area, that helps it to heal better. And so the vascular work involves carefully bringing the blood supply to the bone with it to the face and the neck, and then sewing under a microscope the vessels in the neck to the vessels that go to the leg bone to reperfuse the tissue and keep it alive.
Do you have a vascular surgeon in there as well with you, or you do all that?
This is all part of our practice and part of our training as microvascular reconstructive surgeons.
Holy smokes. This is fascinating. We know so many of you have questions who are watching and comments about Kyle's journey and how Dr. Garg was able to put him back together. Here's how you connect with us right now. Share your questions and please share your comments with us in the Facebook or in the YouTube chat. The links there are right there on your screen. We will read them and ask your questions to Dr. Garg. And while you send in your questions to us, we want to take a brief moment to switch gears and check in with Dr. Dana Hawkinson, who is the Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control. We would love an update on our COVID numbers as we head into Super Bowl weekend. Dr. Hawkinson, how's it going? Love your Chiefs red.
Yeah, that's right. Got it on. Let's go Chiefs.
That's right.
It'll be a great game. Sure, they're going to win. So we'll send them a lot of luck.
We like that.
Right now, the COVID count is good. It has gone down a little bit. 45 total cases, but 22 active. Of those 22, 5 in the ICU and 2 on the ventilator. So the case count, the active cases, has decreased a little bit, and hopefully that trend can continue.
There's a lot of work going on into preventing the next pandemic. I mean, since we've been in it, we've been talking about the next one and how to stop it from happening again. There's a headline from Kaiser Health News that suggests something super interesting, that fruit bats might be a secret weapon in the research. Montana State University will start a new colony of fruit bats just to study how viruses spread. So what's your take on why the focus is so much on research on bats?
Yeah, this is such a heavily loaded headline. This is a great headline. You know, we do know that the source for SARS-CoV-1 was, bats. Probably went to another intermediate host and then into humans. And really the same thing for SARS-CoV-2. Really the best evidence suggests that and supports that. And so I think this is vitally important that we are now starting. We haven't been starting, but we were in the past as well. We need to increase that research into those animal hosts, particularly bats, that harbor these viruses that then can spill over to human populations, either directly or through other animals as well. And, as we have further changes with climate change, with increasing population, with humans moving further into places that they hadn't been before, we are going to have more spillover events. There was a large, very good article in the New England Journal of Medicine recently, but also a large article in Nature in July that really tried to model, in the coming decades, how much we are going to have spillover events with all that is going on with climate change, with the increasing human population. And bats play a significant part in that. And so if this is one more piece that we can learn about bats and how they may either fight off viruses or transmit to other animals, I think that's all good research, because we need to prepare now for the next pandemic. We need to continue to increase funds for science and research, increase funds for those infrastructures for public health, as well as other science and medicine, just as we had talked about the other day, not only here in the United States, but around the world in some of those other resource lacking communities as well.
Dr. Hawkinson, that's so fascinating, and I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said how grateful they are to always have you as a kind of a guiding voice as we still navigate the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic. So thanks for giving us insight on that. I want to go back to our guests now of Shelby and Kyle, because Shelby, I do have a question for you. You were inspired to get a special tattoo after this experience that your whole family survived. We have a close-up of it. It reads, "You kept me alive." Can you tell us the story behind that tattoo?
Yeah, so when Kyle was in the hospital, he was intubated, and so he couldn't talk to us. And so he kept asking for a pen and paper, and so we went and got a ton of notebooks and a bunch of pens, and he wrote us notes, and that was one of the first things that he said to me, and I thought, I'm pretty heavily tattooed, so I thought it was a no-brainer to get that on there.
Kyle, can you, that's so sweet. It kind of makes us all tear up when we hear you talk about that. You have an incredible bond, Kyle and Shelby. Can you talk to us, Kyle? You're a tough guy, and you have Shelby as your, almost like your rudder that has guided you through this. Can you talk about that? Because she understands firsthand the dangers of being a police officer, because you met as police officers.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a tough guy. I just got a good poker face. She's a tough guy. So she's my rock. She's a strong one, and I lean on her a lot. And I can't thank her enough for how strong she was through this whole process and being there for our girls.
We see your sweet little girls throughout this whole program, and I want to ask you how you talk to your daughters, your older ones, about your injuries, particularly in the beginning when your injuries were more visible.
Yeah, that's probably a Shelby question. They just, we've been honest with them up front, and they were just excited to play doctor and help Dad get better and fix his boo-boos.
So you demystify it by just talking about it and playing doctor. You also said something to me, though, when we were on the phone chatting months ago, that you told them that if they eat too much sugar and don't brush their teeth, that could be what happens. You've you've kind of tried to use it to motivate them to brush their teeth.
Oh yeah, yep. We're trying to do that. Yeah, but having said that, they also know what happened. You know, it's just fun to mess with.
Right. You have such a balancing act there with 3 little creatures and your family and your wife. Dr. Garg, I want to ask you, once the surgery was done, it was up to another doctor to figure out the dentures, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So we have photos of the dentures. How do the dentures attach to Kyle's jaw?
Yeah, so they attach to the jaw via these implant locators. So the surgery was virtually planned with a prosthodontist, which is a specialty of dentistry. And so we were able to decide together where to place the implant so that once he had fully healed, the prosthodontist could then attach these implant abutments, these implant locators, to the implants in the bone. And so the denture now has little grooves in it that snaps on to those buttons, those implant locators. We can remove it, have stability, and take it out as he wishes.
So Kyle, do you remove them at night? Like people would remove regular dentures? Do you just snap them in and snap them out, or do you keep them in for long periods of time?
Yeah, no, I take them out at night and clean them and brush them like I brush the rest of my teeth. So.
Why did you choose, just curious, removable dentures instead of permanent ones?
For the cleanliness factor, just so I could take them out and clean them up good and keep my mouth clean. And they said that they would be just as strong as if they were in there permanently. So.
I want to ask Kyle and Shelby about your family, because you come from a long line of a family of service. Shelby, you were a police officer when you met Kyle. Kyle, your sister is a police officer. Your brother-in-law is a police officer. Your grandpa and your dad were also police officers, all in Wichita. Your family has deep roots in Wichita. Can you talk about that and your love for that city?
Yeah, I was born into a law enforcement family with my grandpa and then my dad before me, and then met my wife, and then Trisha joined after that, and then she met her husband there. So yeah, we love serving our community, and we love Wichita. We love living here.
Shelby, you talked to me a little bit on the phone about the sheer outpouring of support that you got from the community after this happened to Kyle, and it seems just remarkable. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was honestly overwhelming. I did not expect people to be so willing to do whatever we needed them to do. It was humbling, it was overwhelming, and it was amazing. I was shocked.
Well, my phone is starting to light up with community questions. First, I want to ask if we have any reporter questions today. Any reporters on the line? Well, let's get right to questions from the community, because we have plenty, and comments as well. George Ann writes, absolutely fascinating, learning so much this morning, and grateful that the doctor could help a police officer. That's from George Ann. Angela just has 2 words, wow, amazing. And George Ann again writes, beautiful story, beautiful kids and beautiful parents. So glad Kyle survived and the surgery was a success. Wendy has a specific question for you, Kyle. Wendy would like to know if you've had any trouble walking, because one, some of your vertebrae were hit and your other fibula was hit by the bullets. How's your mobility?
Yeah, I'm back to almost 100%. I had to relearn how to walk at first, and it was tough, but I've been able to work myself back to where I was.
Laura has a question for Shelby. Laura wants to know if it's tough seeing Kyle go back on the job after all this.
Yes and no. I always knew that it was a goal of his to get back. So for me, being with the law enforcement background, I understand it is hard to watch him walk out the door every day, but I just gotta pray to God to keep him safe and hold it down here. So
And you're doing an excellent job of that. I've never seen a mama wrangle 3 kids, one of them being a newborn, for such a long amount of time in front of a camera. You're amazing. You're Superwoman.
Thank you.
Mike wants to know, it's all you. Mike wants to know, Kyle, if you've had to relearn how to talk or chew.
Yep, I've had to do that 2 or 3 times. Once after the first initial stay in the hospital, and then once after my surgery with Dr. Garg.
Speaking of Dr. Garg, Marcia has just a simple statement about Dr. Garg. She writes, floored by the way Dr. Garg was able to turn this horrible moment in Kyle's life, doing his job as a public servant, into a happier ending. Seeing him with his family is so heartwarming. I think Marcia speaks for all of us on that. And then Jean just has one word, amazing. Jean, you nailed it. Mark has another question for Dr. Garg. Mark wants to know, well, it's a 2-part. One, was this complicated? And his second part of the question you answered earlier in the top of the program was, do you use other bones in the body? And you had said, well,
We do, yeah. So this was definitely complicated. It is a nuanced problem that requires a lot of careful planning. And so, we do this routinely, and the way I approach it is really just to break it down into different components so that we can do each step properly and as carefully and meticulously as we can. The fibula really is our workhorse for skeletal reconstruction of the face. But we do use the scapula bone, the radius bone, sometimes the iliac crest bone from the pelvis. And those are also donor bones that we can use to rebuild the jaw, the midface, and the skull.
It's amazing. A question from Janine, is there any more follow-up care, or is Kyle officially a former patient?
Yeah, when I last saw Kyle in the clinic, I told him, we'd love to see him anytime. He's always, a phone call away. But, he's completed all of his surgery, and he's really an inspirational patient, really took this huge problem, this daunting task ahead of him in stride and persevered. So he's done with surgery, but if anything ever comes up, of course, we would see him back.
So he's a former patient.
Now he's a former patient, but still tweaking his denture with his prosthodontist.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a small price to pay. That's a small follow-up compared to everything the miracles that you have worked. Kyle, another person wants to know, do you have any bullets or fragments of bullets left in your body? Was there anything, sometimes you hear about how things are left in because they're not doing any harm. It's more complicated to take them out.
Yeah, I'm full of bullet fragments. You should see me going through the airport trying to get onto an airplane.
Really? So do
Yeah.
you tell them the story? I mean, are they just looking at you like you're the Bionic Man?
Yeah, basically. I like that X-ray machine up like a Christmas tree. And I'll just tell them I just got a lot of bullets in me.
I feel like Kyle should get some sort of special card or dispensation so he doesn't get stopped at the airport after everything you've been through. That's going to be really interesting for your daughters, though, as they get older. They're going to be like, oh, Dad, we're late. Come on, come on. I want to bring everybody in for your final thoughts because this has been such a special program. I want to start with Kyle. What are your final thoughts?
I can't say thank you enough to Dr. Garg. I'm so grateful that we were introduced to him and met him, and he was able to help me out. He's a blessing.
I see Shelby next to you nodding her head. Shelby, do you want to hop on that thought?
Yeah, Dr. Garg's incredible. His team's incredible. His nurses, they answered, oh gosh, probably 2 million questions that I had throughout the whole thing. Everyone made me feel super confident. I had no doubt that it was going to go well because he is amazing.
Dr. Garg.
The both of you are too kind. I mean, you really are the remarkable folks in this whole project that we've taken on. This really is a team effort. From my nurse Delaney to our bioengineers to the whole team involved in the surgery and the recovery. Everybody plays a role. And as a surgeon, we're very privileged to have the knowledge and experience of prior generations of surgeons who have developed these techniques, modern day technologies in the form of virtual planning and collaborations with dental specialists. So, getting to be a part of all of that is really exciting and fortunate for me as a surgeon. And again, Kyle has really done, and his family, the hard work, and so lucky to be part of their care.
That's the most gracious deflection I have ever heard from a doctor who's performed miracles. Really. Kyle, thank you so much. Shelby, thank you. Dr. Hawkinson, I'd love it if you could take us home as we head into a huge weekend of football parties and Super Bowl parties.
Yeah, let's do that. So first I want to say, just gratitude and thank you to Kyle and Shelby for their service and putting yourself in the line of fire every day and keeping our community safe. And we need to continue to support our police officers and those people that protect us. Also, just looking at this and working with Dr. Garg, we've worked on several cases together. Certainly, it's always great working with him and seeing that every day, those miracles that he performs. And just as he talked about the science and the research that came before him, we need to continue to expand our science and research knowledge and continue to put, just as Dr. Stites said, faith, hope, and science. And that is so important because we have these grand outcomes that we've had, and we've seen the story of today. And lastly, moving into the weekend, just how about that cuteness overload we got going on with the family there? And she's even wearing red. So that little princess is ready for the Chiefs to win too as well. So go
Bring her
Chiefs.
back into the frame. Bring all your daughters back into the frame. We want to close out with the happiest sight ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Well put, Dr. Hawkinson. Look at how cute they are. All right, I need all your help on this last part, everybody. We're going to say 2 words at my count. Go Chiefs. Okay, are you ready? Thank you to all our guests. Thank you to everyone watching here at the Health System. We have been rooting for the Chiefs all season long, along with so many of you. So for one last time, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Go Chiefs!
Go Chiefs!
Go Chiefs!
Coming up Monday on the Morning Medical Update. Some cancers can't be stopped, but why not stop the ones we can? I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Morning Medical Update. The progress and the setbacks in preventing cancer. The advice doctors wish every one of us would follow. Monday at 8.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now everywhere podcasts are available.